Hi, everybody. Welcome to another version of the Bruce Here podcast. I'm very excited about today's podcast. It's going to be very insightful. We have a very different guest today, and we're going to talk about finance. We're going to talk about top line, bottom line, saving money. Quite different than what you might think it is. And so I'm very excited. And we just had a 15-minute chat before we got on this podcast. And I told him to stop telling me because I don't want to lose my edge, which is curiosity. But I got very inspired by some of the things Bruce is going to be sharing with us today, and really opened my eyes in about a few minutes. So I assume we have 25 minutes. More eyes will be open. So I'm going to introduce Bruce Taylor. Bruce, thank you for coming on the podcast. This is awesome. This is awesome.
Well, thank you.
So I'm going to introduce Bruce. Bruce is a fellow at the Canadian Academy of Engineering, which is the highest level. He's also the current founder and CEO at Enviro-Stewards, which is a B Corp. He's going to share more about that. And he's the founder of the Safe
Water Social Ventures.
Safe Water Social Ventures. And there were 10 engineering projects that they won awards. They won specific awards for dealing with the environment. They won many awards. And also they are the only Canadian company to win a global Sustainable Development Goal award as well, SDG award. And as you know, with things are coming up on the SDG side, which are really awesome. So we're gonna have a lot to talk about here. Like I said, I'm a money guy, so I can't wait to get for the money stuff. Before we get to that, I just want to know more about you. Share a bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today. And let's start with that.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually didn't know what I wanted to do, say like in high school. And so I like camp counselor, that kind of stuff. And then was good at math and science. But what am I going to do? So I decided to go into chemical engineering because if I didn't like it, I could go into something else. But to go the opposite way, I'd have to start over.
Yeah.
And then I used the co-op program to try a bunch of things. So I worked at a mine, a pulp mill, petroleum, and consulting. So I found the consulting was actually a good fit with my personality because I'm very challenged by new things. And so in consulting, you're always working on a dozen new things all the time. It's kind of always rolling over. So it was a good fit for my personality. And then so when I graduated, I started doing that. And then I thought, I call it a pre-life crisis. So why are we on the planet? What's life about? That kind of stuff. I went through that for a couple of years, but then finally decided on kind of what to do. And I felt, should I leave and go into ministry or something? No, just keep doing what you're doing, but for a different reason, right? So I kept doing that. But I would take these leaves of absence and do volunteer projects. And that became a source of friction. So eventually I had to start my own company. So in 2000, I started my own company, Enviro-Stewards, just myself. We're about 16 people now. And what we do is we devote about 10 to 20% of our time to charity. And so that's that Safe Water Social Venture and other things where we reinvest part of the savings in that. It all kind of ties together in the realm of sustainable development anyway. So that's kind of who we are. We work mostly for manufacturers. Food and beverage is our biggest sector. And we help them basically improve their margins by reducing water, energy, product yield enhancement, that kind of thing, wastewater management.
Okay. So you talked about Enviro-Stewards as well, which was the second time. You've already talked about that. So let's get into some of the meat.
Sure.
Because we talked about things like decarbonization is one area. There was another area we want to bring up. Another area as well you mentioned as well.
Maybe food loss prevention.
Food loss prevention. So I know there's lots of stuff. So let's talk about that. Like my area is costs and top. Like you got my attention. So let's expand on that to the audience.
Sure. Maybe start with decarbonization. Because everybody's making net zero by this. Various claims with time-bound claims, right?
Yeah.
And but most people who make the claims have no idea how to actually get there, and how could you actually afford to get there.
Okay.
And so, say like Maple Leaf Foods is the first large food company in the world to be carbon neutral.
Yes.
And it's not 2030, not 2050. They got there in 2019, and it didn't cost them money. They report that they've saved $17 million so far, and they're carbon neutral. That has to do with the approach you take. So most people start with the end of the journey. Okay, solar panels or source our energy differently, that kind of stuff. That just costs you money every year. Instead, we go in and do deep conservation first. So we went to 35 factories. We modified each factory to use less water, less energy, lose less protein as they're processing it. That financed the rest of the journey and left money left over. And so that's kind of this approach the approach you take determines whether it's going to cost you money or save you money. And then there's top line benefit. If you buy some of their bacon, you're going to see it right on their logo, like on their packaging and all that kind of stuff. So, and then, if you're a co-packer to somebody, they're all going to be pushing down on their supply chains later. If you're ahead of the game, then you're featured by your customer instead of dragged along by your customer or left behind by your customer. So it improves both your margins and your top line sales.
I'm very curious about something.
Mhm.
What do you see? Like, I get it about the Maple Leafs and the Pepsis and all the big guys, tons of money. 70, I'm thinking like I'm a $20 million or $10 million business, food business. Let's say I'm a 5, 10, 20, $30 million food business. What are you seeing? Is it trickle down to these businesses? Like, has it trickled down, or are we behind the 8 ball, ahead of the 8 ball? Like, I'm really curious. Do the companies do it? Are there opportunities like?
Yeah. So like for us, another big one right now is Unilever, right? Which is a big publicly traded company, and they want to get there by 2030. So we've prepared costed plans for each year, what they need to spend, what they'll save to actually get to their target on time, right? But for a smaller person, your percentages are the same. It's just the total number becomes smaller. So if I save a third of your water, that's more important dollar-wise for a big company, but it's still more important to a small company because that goes directly to your margin, right? If you use a third less water. So we did 60 factories for York region. We found an average of a third of the water per factory with under 2-year payback to just not use the water in the first place, right?
Wow.
Similarly on energy, very often, most of the stuff is under 1 year, but depending on how far you want to go, you might go to 2 to 5 years kind of thing. So what we find is it's probably one of the best investments you can actually make is on efficiency. Our overall average of everything we've done is 1 year so far. And so if you had a 100% return every year from now on, it doesn't have to be environmental, that's a good investment.
Yeah, because especially right now, look, with inflation, everything going on, everybody's so concerned about their margins and their pricing and their margins. So what I hear you saying, this is an opportunity, a hidden cost opportunity, an untapped. Okay, I get it again. The big boys. I mean, So in a small company, how much? Can you give me a number? How much money typically can let's say a company of $10 to $15 million? How much have you seen on the table?
So we did a plant in Cambridge. It's not in food, but it's a small manufacturer there, kind of small size. They would probably have, 20, 30 people. And his margin on sales went from 4.3% to 9.4%.
That's double.
Double the profit on the same sales.
Just
through conservation, because it goes directly on the bottom line, right?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It could be thousands.
And then he was featured in a Globe and Mail article, right? So what's that worth? You can't even buy that kind of advertising. So the Globe and Mail was writing up how he cut his natural gas by 90%, right? It's called Veriform if anybody wants to look it up.
That's incredible. So let's talk about, and also at the same time, you're also accomplishing, because like I'm going to bring up the food because Loblaws and Sobeys and Metro, all these people have their development, their sustainable development goals to meet 2030 UN, all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't get with the program,
you're left behind.
You're left
and 90% of their footprint is ingredients. And it's not their operation. It's the stuff they're buying from you. Right? So they're going to get to you pretty quick. They're going to look at their own operations, what they can do, but pretty soon they're going to get to their ingredients. What's our supply chain doing?
What's supply? And it's not that far off. If you're saying a year or two payback, I mean, I'm going to bring it up. Get with the program now. Well, I mean, it's for your own good.
Well, the guy I mentioned, Veriform, that was in 2008. And, that's when we had the worldwide crash. Many of his competitors are gone because they lost 5% of their margin. He probably lost margin also, but he still had twice as much as them to start from. So he survived and he's still there and he's growing and getting into other markets and stuff like that. So it protects every job in your factory by embedding that efficiency in your factory.
Interesting. Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
I am willing to bet you find something in every factory. Every because I'm not so sure. I think it's on people's radar, but people don't know what they don't know. And sustainability, Well, I got packaging, I'm good. You
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah. Well,
and
even Maple Leaf, I told you we did the 35 factories. We implemented stuff. They had us go back to the factories and find even more stuff. I think it was 4 or 5 years later.
incredible.
It's a continuous process, right?
So let's talk
And
about another thing.
yeah,
Yeah, let's talk. You
go ahead.
mentioned another one, which is something that that is I'm very passionate about,
Mhm.
because it involves a whole bunch of areas. Food hunger.
Oh, food. Yeah,
It's the food waste,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and that's food waste is a hit to carbonization. It's a hit to food hunger.
yeah, yeah.
It's a whole thing. I'd like to hear
Yep.
more about your thoughts on food waste.
Sure.
Does
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
can you share a story, or how does that?
yeah, yeah. If anybody wants to Google Clean 50 Campbell soup, that's one of those projects I won an award. They had asked us, hey, we had done an energy study for energy and water, and we found them, I think it was 1.6 million a year of energy and water savings, right? They said, okay, can you come back and do a solid waste audit? Okay. Oh, don't bother coming. Why not? Well, our waste management company is going to do it for almost nothing. Okay. 2 months later, can you come and do a solid waste audit? What was the last one?
Yeah.
Well, they came in and they said, okay, 99% is already diverted to a waste energy plant, and just divert the other 1%, and you're done. So then we went in, we did a solid waste prevention audit. So not at the dumpster, back at the process. Where is it actually leaving the process? What was it worth at that point it left the process? Not what does it cost to haul it away in the dumpster. When we did that, we found $700,000 a year of savings of food, 1,000 tons a year. That won this award. Then Walmart Foundation then gave us a contract to go to 50 food and beverage manufacturers across Canada. We found an average of $230,000 per year of food loss that can be prevented with a 1-year payback. Just for your mind, if you put a grocery bag beside the CN Tower, another one beside it, you would get to London before you ran out of grocery bags every year, just
Holy,
from 50 factories.
well, you know, it's interesting because these big companies, they've already done a lot,
Mm-hmm.
because you found even more.
Oh yeah,
Well,
yeah.
take a smaller company
Mm-hmm.
that's not as sophisticated,
Oh yeah,
but they're not small. $20
yeah,
million
yeah,
is a big company,
yeah, yeah.
but I would not, or Coman,
Mm-hmm.
I would think they're not as sophisticated as a Campbell's.
Mm-hmm.
Years and years of
Oh yeah,
building
oh yeah, yeah. They've been
sophisticated
improving for 100
operations.
years, and they're
They've been
continuous
improved for
improvement
100
department.
years,
We've been doing this
and
100 years. What are you going to
found
find?
that.
Well,
I
just give us
wonder
a shot.
I wonder what's in the $20 million person.
Exactly.
$20 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
And our approach is basically we come in and measure everything first. So where's all your water going? Where's all your energy going? Where's all your food actually lost? Right. So then you can prioritize. Most of it is these 5. Forget the rest for now. And then what's the root cause for those that's resulting in that? So example, remember I was mentioning the cheese plant.
I want to hear about the cheese plant.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
share with the audience, the cheese plant. Yeah.
So we did a plant. They're making like blocks of industrial mozzarella cheese, and it's going down a conveyor, and it fell maybe 8 inches to the next conveyor, and a little piece of cheese fell off. And so everybody in the whole plant can see that, but nobody knows what it cost them. So I took a block of cheese off the belt, weighed it, put it on, let it fall, weighed it again. How many of these in a year? They were making processed cheese out of what fell off onto the tray underneath. What's the difference in value between mozzarella and that? $70,000 per year. Now for $70,000 per year, can we get the conveyor guy in here? So the problem is that missing element is actually the opportunity cost. And this is where CFO is a great position,
Yeah.
right? And the trouble is in the CFO's books, it's all hidden. So we did a brewery, and the one in BC said, don't come. Our head office is making us bring you in, but we don't want you. Well, why not? Well, we don't care about food loss. So,
Well,
okay, well, what do you care about? Sewer surcharge. We're paying $700,000 a year on effluent BOD. Okay. Well, did you know it takes 20 liters of beer to make 1 kilogram of sewer surcharge? Yes, you're worried about that 1 kilogram of sewer surcharge. How about the 20 liters of beer that would it take to make that? Oh, so then we went in and we improved the beer yield, basically, right? And so you have to talk the language of that facility. But as a CFO, you need to assign the opportunity cost, not the disposal cost, right? In your books, you have the disposal cost for your roll-off bin, which is at least an order of magnitude lower than the cost to buy what's in that bin, right? You know your effluent charge, but you don't know how much it was for the ingredients that you're paying the city to destroy, or you're sending it to waste energy. How much do we pay to buy that food that's going to the digester? And so as a CFO, that's the very first thing you need to do is increase the level of awareness of the size of the opportunity.
Interesting.
Let's say like that Campbell Soup, one of them was the conveyors. So they're doing product changeovers, and over the course of the year, it's 13 tons a year of meat being lost, which in their books is $1,300 because it's $100 a ton to send it to the waste energy plant. Well, yeah, but it also costs you $10,000 a ton to buy that chicken, plus $100 to destroy that chicken. That's $131,000. Now, for $131,000, can we modify this process so you run out of broth and meat at the same time, kind of thing? Right? So the very first thing is you have to raise a priority level so that people will actually pay attention to it. And you're not artificially doing it, you're doing it, what's the actual cost, right? And so, how much did it cost to buy it? How much processing you got in by the time you lose it, that kind of stuff, plus the disposal, right? And so that's how we basically start, is by raising the awareness level. And, in a simple walkthrough, I can show, some things that, they're focusing on other areas, right? But, here's something you haven't noticed about your own facility, right? And this is kind of where some savings is going to be. And they can see, because our biggest competitor is not any other company, it's do nothing, right? Let's just do what we're doing now, right?
But it's a no-brainer.
Mhm.
To me, it's a no-brainer. So is it as simple?
Once you know, yeah.
Is it as simple as you are one of your leads, one of your experts,
Yep.
and
Sure.
your team come in and walk the floor and just, is it that
Yeah,
simple? Walk the floor and
the first-
who knows?
The first day I can walk through and find, I can see hundreds of thousands usually of savings, but it won't get implemented because I don't yet know why it's not implemented. The rest of the job is to figure that out. So our tagline is engineering change, and engineering is the easy part. So when we do our projects, we have to bring on, who are the stakeholders going to be? Maintenance, sanitation, quality, procurement. Get them in the room at the beginning so they know what we're doing and why. Get them together 2/3 through, where we're going to run through every idea with them. If they agree, then we do the business case. So when they see the report, their own team already agreed to every idea that's in the report. And then how do we work with them to get it implemented, measured afterwards, put in places to quantify the savings, right? Especially food loss, nobody measures prevention. They only measure destinations.
Yeah.
And if you prevent it, there's no destination. But so we establish a baseline and quantify it because it blows out all the other destinations. All the economics is there if you can sell it as product, right? All the social values there if you keep in the food supply. All the environmental there because you invested in making it.
If you're based on our conversation, you're taking it much to a whole new level. Like really, really like you told the story where I think it was Campbell's and they called you 2 months later. You're really going in and looking and looking at really in depth and looking at every nick and cranny.
Yeah.
I think this is big in automotive. They do that every nick and cranny.
Yeah.
But
a good example too is Conestoga Meat Packers. They're like a co-op in Breslau, Ontario.
Yeah.
And we did water and energy for them a while back and saved them, I think, like 30-40%. It was big numbers. And they called us, can you come back? And we're starting a green team. Can you teach them how to do a solid waste audit? I said, you don't want me to teach them to do a solid waste. Teach them to literally sort and weigh garbage. Why don't you have us teach them to do a solid waste prevention audit? We did. One of them we found was one of their highest value products is a pork tenderloin. And they put it in a vacuum package and they chill it and send it to Japan. When we did our assessment, 50 of them per day were getting stuck in this chilling machine. And when we went in for the sanitation shift, the sanitation worker was taking it out and sending it to the renderer, right? Which is better than garbage. But wouldn't you rather sell it as a pork tenderloin? So why are these getting stuck in here? How do we prevent that? And so their green team is super energized. And when we rolled it out, it wasn't, if you do it like this, you're going to save this much for the company. It was, you can do it like this, it's fine. If you do it like that, 30 people get to eat for a year.
Well,
right? You're being more responsible with the ingredients you're entrusted with, right? So what language speaks to the audience you're talking? A CFO is a different audience than a maintenance, than
no, but the
procurement.
consumer, the more as we move ahead, the more socially conscious consumer, especially the Generation Z. They're into, and again, there's another element, the marketing element.
Oh yeah,
Like you're right. You mentioned earlier Maple Leaf, like we're the most sustainable company in the world. That's very compelling because you feel like
right on their logo.
We just did one recently. You want to buy it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we just did one recently. So we have a potato processor that we're working with, and a dehydrator and a protein company. And basically, we just put together that supply chain for these previously culled potatoes, right, that weren't good grocery grade, right? We're going to animal feed. Instead, send it to this dehydrator, make potato flour, send it to this other person, make hamburgers, right? Now they can put on their burgers that it's upcycled because it was previously lost from the food supply. So you can put this logo right on your thing, and your footprint is 2/3 lower than virgin potato flour because those resources were already lost, right? So in the accounting system for the greenhouse gases, whatever. So you can reduce your footprint and you get this marketing benefit. So there's top line benefit and there's bottom line benefit.
I want to ask you another question.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to focus more on these 10, 20 million, these
Yeah.
the big guys.
Yep.
Your experience, are they measuring their carbon footprint? Do they measure it? Do they think
They'll have a rough
measure
idea.
it?
We'll help them. So say like Jameson Vitamins, we measured all the footprint for them, scope 1, 2, 3. We even get into scope 4 now too, which is the result of the product or service you're providing, right? So if say our engineering avoids carbon for somebody else, we count that as part of our scope 4. And so if they're not, we can help them measure it. It's not that hard to measure it. Most people measure it and just think it's a static thing versus what do you do about it?
I got it.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can put together whole plans on here's what you implement here, and it's going to track your whole thing to whatever target you set. And so, a primer is scope 1 is anything you're directly emitting yourself. You're burning gas, you're losing refrigerant, you got vehicles. Scope 2, you're causing somebody else because you're buying electricity or district heating or cooling. Scope 3 is your supply chain, which is 90% of most food companies' footprint is the ingredients, right? The agricultural step. If you're good with that, if you had, if we improve your yield in factory, it goes all the way back to the agricultural step, the savings on your footprint, right? Because you have to grow less to make the same quantity of product.
You know what, Bruce, this has been very insightful. We're coming close to an end to the podcast.
Yep.
This has been very, very insightful. And I guess as we summarized a couple of things, if you not only my takeaway, not only if you want to improve get with because everybody's has to get with the program. That's what, but now if you're a little, is opportunities to save a lot of money in that. Opportunities to save big money that you don't see. It's hidden. It's a hidden cost. You don't see it. It's not the invoice from your supplier saying I know I got to spend less for the ingredient. It's another. Right. It could be a tremendous opportunity, like you had an example, to increase your margin. And is there anything else before we end? Is there anything else that you wanted to share that I didn't ask or I didn't discuss that you think is important for the audience to know? Last words.
I would just drive home what you're saying. Like, as a CFO, remember I mentioned the 230,000 per factory of food loss that we found at the 50 factories in a row, right? With 1 year payback. Think about how much product you have to sell every year to make 230,000 extra profit every year. Then you got to process it, right? And so it's really the best investment you can make, but everybody's so busy that they don't have time to take a step back and take a look at their operation.
Yeah, but that's why they contact you and you just do it for them.
Exactly.
By the way, in a company of 10 million, a $230,000 bump up is huge, because when you're talking shareholder value, it could be 5 or 6 depending on what you're in. It's not 200,000 or 250,000. It could actually be $1 billion of shareholder value.
Exactly.
It's another. We could talk for hours. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, thanks for hosting. Appreciate it.
And tremendous insights. And by the way, this podcast, in my opinion, is a must to listen to, especially given today with all inflation and challenges of margin. This is really an important topic and a tremendous opportunity. And thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Take care, buddy. We'll see you next time on the Bruce Singer Podcast. Bye-bye.